commercial. I told you I'd get you one. No, I didn't. So anyway, your client is, the consumer is the market. So narrow your consumer down to the one that you want to sell, because these are the questions that you have to answer. You have to say, what product should be in my portfolio? What product should I be offering? Well, you know, there's so many ranges of products, just from price points and quality levels and everything. You couldn't possibly have them all, and you don't want to. You cone down your products, but not to the ones that are most convenient to you, not to the ones that are the cheapest. You cone down your products to the ones that are the best fit for who? All right. Your pricing. How do you manage your pricing? Where does the experience take place where the transaction happens? And what is the role of the brand? And I'm here doing the brand story. Look where the brand is. It's all the way over here. It's an element of communication that communicates your story instantaneously. But you have to know who you're using it on, because the most important piece of this whole thing is who is your target customer. Once you know your target customer, then you can say, these are the products that customers should have. This is the price they're willing to pay. You know, when you run sales, every time you run an ad, you're like giving your money away. An advertised sale can be the most expensive thing you ever do. Not saying you shouldn't share valuable sales with your preferred clients. But did you ever run a sale and somebody buys from you who would have bought from you anyway, didn't even know you had a sale? Or have you ever walked into a store, walked up to the counter to pay for something, they said, and it happens like in Best Buy and those places all the time. I was in Staples the other day, and I bought a piece of equipment, got up to the thing and saved half price. I mean, I didn't deserve it. I took it, but I didn't deserve it. If you get those things in balance around your target consumer, and you can have more than one. When you get that in balance around your target consumer, what you find is that you have harmony in what you're doing. And therefore, your brand will then be effective in communicating your strategy and your position. And that combination will allow you to... So then the question for you is, what is your strategy? How have you balanced these things? And one thing that I noticed about the exciting window brands, they sort of set the parameters. It doesn't block you from doing a lot of things you want to do, but it puts you in a certain elegance. You're in the home. Therefore, you're probably not working with 20-year-olds. You know, I mean, you start thinking about the characteristics of that. You can back into this or go into it frontwards. But I'm going to give you an example of how you might want to do it if you lived in Wilmington, Delaware. But what you're trying to do is you have a parameter of all the possibilities where you could be in your business. And I mentioned some of them. And if you look at products, you get no definitive direction of where you might be. But if you look at yourself and say you balance yourself around what is my strategy on one end, and you're in business to make a profit, so what is your profit needs or requirement for your business? You always must be ethical, and you always must be legal. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business. And then start looking at how you sheer up versus the other players. And you know your place. Don't let anybody... If somebody says, well, I compared you to the internet, and you're $4 higher, and I'm going to go buy them. You shouldn't have been with that person, first of all. But you're not going to be disturbed by that, because you were just in the wrong place. Your clients are ones who are the right age, economic status, or economic capability. They need your services, they like your service, yada, 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 and go on. And I can give you a couple better examples or more definitive examples as we go on. But that's where you're looking for, because if you are able to do that, and think about how much time do we have? You know, I did it, were we sitting together when I did it? For breakfast the other day. Somebody said something to me after that. When you look at how much time you have, how many people are a one-person operation? How many people are a 30-person operation? None. Okay. So time is an important issue with it. How much time do we have in a day? Roughly 24 hours if we give up sleep. Well, if you think about it, if you take your average sale, what's your average sale? $3,000, $4,000? Maintain gross margin about 40%. What's your close rate? Do the math, and then say, what is your profit requirement? and you do the math and work backwards, how many people could you possibly see in a day? That's your limitation. The more you can get successful, if you went out and every time you made a call, let's say I had a trick in my head. Now, I never thought of this. What would you pay me for this? You're my wife, so we're not doing that one anymore. You were on the last example. What would you pay me if I told you I have a way that at least 90% of the time, a certain client that you call on will buy from you? What would you be willing to? Is it worth a $5 click on to me? Isn't that a valuable piece of information? How about if I told you what customer that is? That 90% of the time or more, that customer will buy. Do you think there is such a customer? You know who it is? It's a referral. A referral customer 90% of the time always buys. If you can get yourself to a position where 100% for all intents and purposes every time you call on a customer they buy, what have you done to your ability for time? You have expanded your time, because now you can either add more calls and make more money, or you can hit your target and have a couple of days off for good behavior. What you do by focusing your strategy and your position, you reduce the number of potential clients you need to see to be successful, to hit your numbers. You also, it directs you to where your clients live. It also tells you how that client gathers information, what information they believe and what information they do not, or what information they believe hierarchy than other information. It tells them who they trust and what services are important. It simplifies your product line. You know, if you have too many products in your product line, you ever make mistakes on billing, pricing, sizing, dimensions, everybody's got their own quirks. Every manufacturer has their own code. So by the time you get done with, you have too many products, you can't even manage your way through that. Biggest mistake for kitchen designers, the best ones in the country, if that firm has too many product lines in their place, they lose so much money on just mistakes. You make a mistake on a single cabinet in the kitchen, it could cost you $10,000. That's the sort of mistakes you get into, and it's a common one. It reduces your competitors. What a great way to reduce your competitors. By you focusing on your market, you know this is the place where I'm going to live and die. I'm not going to let anybody in here. The rest of it I don't care about. Do you think those first three examples I put up, maybe you already knew this, I can tell from your groans, those first three web pages I put up there, that any of those three are ever your competitors? They're not. They shouldn't be. Because the kind of client that you want won't even go there. You know, I saw a statistic years ago about Home Depot, and it was, we sell high-end clients too. Matter of fact, they even believe their own stuff. They opened up a thing called Expo, and which didn't work. Home Depot clients, and they did a statistic and got everybody coming through, and they did the analysis, and they got Steve coming through the door here and put him down high-end client. What happened was they never looked at what high-end clients bought there. High-end clients would buy at Home Depot, usually males, on Sundays when it was the only place you can get a light bulb. The only place was open. So they misread their own data, but they did a terrible job. How many kitchens did Home Depot ever sell to high-end clients? Almost none. Almost none. The definitive line there was amazing. And it's the same for a lot of other products. And I keep banging this thing, and I keep going backwards here. There you go. It simplifies your product line. It reduces your number of competitors. It reduces your marketing cost. If you know exactly where your competitors live, you know exactly what to do. Do you have to buy television advertising to make your point? If you did, you'd go broke, and you wouldn't make your point very well. By the way, mass advertising when you don't need it drags more boneheads to you that you will never sell, that you will go home depressed because you think your product doesn't sell, when in fact it's just because you're talking to the wrong people. It reduces your advertising, your advertised sales, your need for advertised sales. Now, advertised sales, I think it always bothers me about an advertised sale. You have to pay for the advertising. You have to give somebody a discount, and then people buy it who would have bought anyway. So all of that, and you might even make a previous customer unhappy because they just bought 2 weeks ago, and now you're having a sale. So and I'm not saying sales are always wrong, but it's a mix of good things you need to do. The bottom line of all that is you increase your gross margin. Your brand is a valuable and important asset. When matched to your business strategy and your position of your company, it's dynamite when you put those two things together. But it requires you to know who your target customer is. All right, so I knew somebody would say this, yeah, it's a lot of words, but how does it really work? So I thought, well, I'm going to take a little shot at this, and I'm going to do it myself for Wilmington, Delaware. And we had a couple of people here earlier who I guess who were looking to join you from Wilmington, or at least one was from Wilmington, Delaware. And so I'm going to go back. If he signs, I'm going to go back and give him this. If he doesn't, I'm not.
He will.
I'm not. I am loyal to you guys. Team effort. This is Wilmington, Delaware. Now, it's not very impressive when I looked at that thing. Pennsylvania, a little niche in the backside is a line between Maryland goes down from there and Pennsylvania goes up. And neighborhoods do walk across the line. There's no fundamental reason why you can't go from Delaware and then sell somebody who lives across the street in Pennsylvania. But I just did it this way just to make a point. If you take a look at that map, in that area, there are about 450,000 people live. Whole state of Delaware is only about 600,000 people. And in Wilmington, Delaware, is about 400,000 people are in the Delaware, or in the Wilmington counties. And in there, that creates your cost of advertising and all that sort of stuff. But if you do a little homework, 100% of the people who I would think I would want as a client if I was in your position live here. So already I've reduced the thing down to literally neighborhoods. Now these are the neighborhoods. Now that I know this is where the people is, now how would I do my marketing communications? How would I go after them? Well, we heard a great story about flyers. I know every neighborhood that's out here. Delaware only has, unless it's a senior citizen place, it only has one gated community in the entire state that I know about. And those parts that are marked up there at the top, high income, kind of folks that you would want to deal with, and the kind of, now I go back and say, well, how do they get their information? Well, one of the things is, you know where they live, so we'll get on the left-hand side of the road and we're going to go for them. The other thing is they gather information by listening to friends, relatives, and neighbors. So it's a whole bunch of things there about when you're doing a job, make sure you have your van, make sure your van is marked. And I know people don't always like to do these things, but yard signs when you're there. And yard signs, if you think of yard signs as an advertising, you're sticking on somebody's yard, you feel a little bit bad about it. I think a yard sign, when you put it on somebody's yard, people know who's in there in case something goes on, somebody parks a van or something on there in the wrong spot, they know who to call. And I even have an idea that goes beyond flyers. It's when you go to your client and you say, you know, we're going to be here for a couple days doing this stuff when we park in our vans out on the street. I'd like to make sure your neighbors know who we are, just so if there's anything goes on, somebody parks in the wrong spot, they're a little worried. I just want to put out a note that says, we get here no earlier than 8 o'clock in the morning. We leave by 4 or 5, what happens to be. Here's our phone number if you're concerned about any of the vehicles being in the place, and don't do anything commercial. They just think you are the greatest person in the world. The Joneses just had their window treatments done by somebody who was so courteous to us. Then who do you think they're going to call next? It's a good idea, right? We do it in the kitchen side, too. Also, the other place, and I heard you talk about realtors, and this reciprocal idea of how you get stuff done. When somebody moves into a house, probably the only person they know in that neighborhood is the realtor who sold them the house. So why not utilize the realtor for the kind of questions that you want? Who's the best person to do this? Where's the best person to get this done? Bingo, you guys. Accountant and all the other people. And the services, this group of people who live in this area, they're not a lot of do-it-yourselfers. They want continuity of people. One of the things that you have in your industry, and you often will get couched as being a small company, and like there's something wrong with that. I mean, it's like big companies, there's something good about that. When you go to a retail location for the kind of products that you handle, what's the probability you go back a second time a year later and the same person is going to be waiting on you, even works there or anything else? It's much lower. When somebody deals with you, they have the continuity of